Hello viewers, how are you? During this meeting, I'm going to discuss about managing principle, which is chapter number 13 for the students who are studying this course. And generally, I'm going to discuss about some management theories, some earlier theories and some contemporary theories of the management. So let's start the chapter. Okay, so this chapter is about managing principles. And the learning objective of this chapter is to uh, introduce you to the origins and sometimes some shameful and some foundation and principles of the early management approaches and exploring some modern management ideas and contemporary management models and what are the labor process theory. After completing this topic, you will be able to understand the origin, sometimes shameful, of some foundation and the principles of early management approaches, appreciate how legislative changes made larger organization possible, know the debate surrounding bureaucracy and its hybrid as the most widespread principles of management, describe major theorists' principles of management, grasp Marx's argument and its modern extensions about the role of exploitation in the labor process. Remember that management is a science on which organizations are but the experiments. This chapter covers most of the influential ideas about the management, and these ideas reduce management to some simple principle or one best way models. And these kind of the ideas have a long history in the organization, and we also see these kind of the models in the organization as well, which comes under the some best practices. And early models of the management has spread across the global is somehow a bit move toward the slavery. It's a kind of a model where the people are in a kind of a shameful act of slave trade. That's a part of the European and the American history. And in fact, Koch suggests that the model of the management of slaves in plantation anticipated many early modern management ideas. Slavery is an institution formed on human bondage and coercive control, and some of the earliest ideas about how to manage a large scale organization. And many early ideas of the modern management, such as standardization, is basically developed in the context of the slavery management. And then this is basically, if you tend to think that the slavery is something that is belonging to the past, this is not the case, as we have seen in the recent studies. And the Bail estimated that the contemporary number of slaves at 27 million people globally in 2005. So this is a kind of the globalized large-scale organization that's model of slavery, where organizations are putting the people due to their economic dependency or other dependencies. And there are different kind of the slavery. Bonded labor is one thing, and in the sex industry, there are another kind of a slavery which happened over there. So these are the different kind of a slavery exist in our modern world. So look into the principle. Let's see the evolution of the management ideas. First of all, principles of mastery. If we look into the small workshops, the master has a control over various resources and workplace material, distribution, manufacture networks, ownership, and that made these small scale capitalist, a shopkeeper is a kind of a small scale capitalist who has a control over these kind of resources. So on this basis, masters were easily able to enforce the rules because they have a discretion over their resources. And then it is a kind of a direct management control, face-to-face control, where the master is putting up their control over the people who are working with them. So direct management control combines the ownership and the control of resources with practical knowledge of the means of production to exercise discipline over their employees. Because direct management control is a kind of face-to-face control where the person has a direct control over the resources, and due to the practical means of the knowledge of the production, they are exercising discipline over the employees who are working in the organization. The owners of the capital were known as the capitalists because they owned capital, the money, and the social relation and the resources that made them masters over the other men, women, and children. So in a larger workshops, in contrast, managing an organization had to be less personal, and various methods of discipline and surveillance over employees were tried. Or like in the earlier development of the industrial capitalism, a building that had factory discipline built into was described by Jeremy Bentham. There is a certain kind of architecture through which they are putting up they're putting an eye on every employee who are working in the organization. Okay, so let's talk about this architectural principle which has been given by Jeremy Bentham, and that what he called the panoptical principle. He observed in the early days of the factory organization in place at a factory near Moscow that his brother managed, and panoptical principle establishes the capacity to be all seeing of those aware that they are potentially being watched. It's a kind of a surveillance that the people who are working, the design of the building is support the surveillance over the people. So the supervisor has an eye over the people who are working in this kind of a structure of building. There's a plan of panoptical. So you can look into, you can also Google these kind of the building, panopticon buildings, what are the plan of the panopticon, how the people are working in the panopticon. It was not just a system of surveillance, but also a system of record and rules. The authorities have a complete file on the behavior of each employee who are working with them with certain kind of a timetables and the nature of the work. So the aim of this kind of a architecture is to self-discipline the employees in the organization. And so this is the one kind of the way through which they are putting up employees to be self-disciplined in the organization. And today, if you look into that thing, so panopticon has become electronic. So average person in the city of the developed world is rarely out of the range of the CCTVs as they move around. And so every person when move around in the modern city, it is subject to a certain kind of surveillance. So these are the certain way through which they are in the modern way. The technology is helping authorities to have a surveillance on their employees, on their citizens. Okay, early modern principles expanded. So those for early modern management, those who were managing and being managed were expected to create more value than would be paid out to them in wages and salary, thus ensuring that there is a return to the capital and that can be invested in the enterprise. So early modern management was based on the principle of efficient extraction of value from the labor that was employed. That means that the labor need to create a more value in comparison to their salaries and the wages. So if so, that's how the persons who are basically engaging those employees, they are putting up those employees into certain kind of work so they can work more and create more values. At earlier stages, the numbers to be supervised were not great. By the early 1850s, a factory of 300 people could still be considered very large in the British cotton industry. Money was normally held up in the aristocratic land holdings, And they earlier entrepreneurs raised capital through credit, and merchants combined credit with rented buildings and machinery, and then they utilize the cheap sources of labor. In this way, if the enterprise were to fail, the liability and exposure of the entrepreneur may be limited. Okay, then enterprise were enabled to grow beyond the financial capacities of their owners by the development of the limited liability legislation from the Limited Liability Act of 1855. So the limited liability legislation separated the private fortunes of the entrepreneurs from investment in business. So that if the later failed, if the company failed, the personal fortune was saved and the debtor present was avoided. That means this legal act of limited liability legislation saved the entrepreneur for uh, paying the credit from their personal possessions or personal wealth. So that limited liability created the company as an entity, and that company is basically responsible for the debtors in that case. So due to this kind of a protection to the entrepreneurs, the scale effects of the limited liability were dramatic. For example, the group workers at Essen in Germany had only 72 workers in 1848, but by 1873 it employed 12,000 workers. Because there is a limited liability on the entrepreneur in the case of the organization, so that is how the organizations are expanding and hiring more people. Otherwise, initially, it was also the liability, it was the personal liability of the entrepreneur as well in case of the failure of the venture. So that makes the, that's why they limited their business operation, because in case of failure, then they are liable, then they were liable to the creditors. But due to this limited liability legislation, their liabilities are limited to that organization, and that's how the organization started expanding. Then internal contracting principle, and so that how the people, for example, the limited liability legislation solved this problem of how to raise a capital and increase scale. But how you are going to manage these big organizations, these large organizations? So that is, it was a master rather than impersonal authority of the company, the enterprise. So that problem, one solution was based on the owners of previously independent businesses being re-employed as internal contractor to oversee the process of the labor in firms. So that were taken by the financiers, because financiers were individuals who are skilled in raising the capital, then running the daily affairs of the work. So the internal contractor who were the small business owners, they were hired and they were running the daily operations of the businesses. So in internal contracting, a contractor used materials and plant and equipment supplied by owners, but managed the labor contracted to deliver a certain quantity of a output. So that the capital has been provided by the financier and the owner, and the internal contractor are going to use that raw material and the machinery and manage the labor and produce the required quantity of an output. So that was the concept. That has been used, and in the late 19th century to the early 20th century, and in different kind of countries. Then engineering principle by F.W. Taylor. And it was in the steel factories, the management founding father, F.W. Taylor, first developed the systematic statement from his experience as a practical engineer. Engineering was a discipline, and then he was working on the different way through which management principles can be refined. He was also known as the father of the scientific management. and management emerged as a systematic solution to the issue of how to get others to get things done. And so this is the one way in which in the late 19th century, uh, he has armed with a checklist and stopwatch, and F.W. Taylor developed and popularized scientific management around a set of principles for making people work more visible. He observed and timed work and then redesigned so that tasks could be done more efficiently. Scientific management assumes that there is one best way to organize work. An organization based on the principle of standardization of time and routinization of motion. So the manager job is to find the one best way through which the work can be done. And the labor job is to implement that model. So Taylor's four principle of management are developing a science of work. And what do you mean by science of the work? Observing and measuring norms of output using a stopwatch to time human movements on this basis, improving the design of the workstation and tools which could improve effectiveness. So given improvement in effectiveness, Taylor argued that the pay could be improved. So that's a science of the work, finding out the best way of doing a thing. And the people who are becoming an expert in that way, they are basically become the they will be paid more because they become specialized in that particular kind of a task. Then is scientifically selecting and training the employee. Taylor believed that everyone had a different aptitude. It was really a question of fitting the worker to the job, and this was the task of the management. So when management did this job properly, all human resources would be developed to their utmost potential. So this concept of the person to the job fit come from the Frederick Winslow Taylor, who basically identified that the person need to be fit in that particular kind of a job. This slide is basically Henry Ford 14 principles. So I'm just giving you the context of the scientific management. Then I'm going to discuss about Henry Ford and his 14 principles. Okay. Then combining the science of work and selecting and training of the employees, Taylor thought that the worker would benefit from higher wages while managers who had to learn new systems of work and to give up privileges that they had, in Taylor view, no right to might be expected to raise. So that is basically the Taylor get the good salary as well. That is the one tenet of the Taylor scientific management, that the people who get specialized in and who are performing their work effectively and efficiently, they need to be paid well as well. Management and the workers must specialize and collaborate closely. Management must focus on mental labor, on setting up a system, then designing them and supervising them. And worker must concentrate on the manual labor and leave the higher order mental labor to the manager. So that is the kind of a differentiation of the work between the manager who are doing the mental work and the worker who are doing the manual work and the physical. So Taylor was the founding founder of the work study, fitting the person to the job and work design, as well as the pioneer of the productivity related pay systems. We have introduced a different kind of principle for the political economy of the body. And from the Taylor point of view, the working body should be maximally productive and minimally fatigued to be more efficient. So from, if you look into that from the Taylor point of view, so Taylor view were subject to the severe criticism as well. Some criticism were like internal contractor, the people who provided and supervised labor to work within factory, owned by remote financiers, entrepreneurs and industrialists, stood to lose their livelihood if the scientific management trimmed and replaced them with systematic managers so they were opposed. The internal contractor were opposed to the principle of scientific management because scientific management is going to replace the role of the internal contractor by the managers who are skilled in developing those kind of management systems. And then employers tend to adopt this idea in a peaceful because they were more on efficiencies of the management, finding out the one best way. But Taylor also proposed that under his recommendation for the use of the piece rate to increase the wages. So sometimes employers are not using those recommendations. And in the popular mind, Taylor system was identified with layoffs due to available work being completed faster, because you find the one best way will be only maybe it results into a certain kind of a reduction in the workforce. Now let's talk about the industrial management principle, production line principle by Henry Fayol. Uh, so after 30 years, Henry Ford introduced the assembly line as a new way of producing automobiles, and that basically modeled on the principle of the assembly lines in the Chicago slaughterhouse. Actually, Fordism is basically a way through which standardizing of the production and the machine tool as well as using assembly line, but also paid higher wages designed to allow employees to become effective consumer of the products they produce. So this is the one Ford developed a certain kind of the power based on the combination of the elements of the Taylor principle, and they are make a production line rather than a static workstation. So machinist job in the new product line as a formalized structure with rigid job description and the prescription, and with a high degree of work specialization, and a clear and strict hierarchy of authority, vertical communication, and the limited information network. So this Henry Ford is basically created, is a pioneer in that regard of assembly lines, where the specialization occurs. So when labor is divided in and defined into smaller specific tasks rather than being given them a general task. So small spans of a management control has been given to the workers, long chains of the command, and there are various level of the management in the organization, high degree of centralization, decision making, and the control resulted into a tall organizations, and organization environment was simple, stable, and relatively unchanged. And jobs were repetitive, boring, and exhausting, and employees were often uh, unsurprisingly resistant to the discipline imposed on them. So due to that kind of stuff, management has faced a certain kind of the conflict with the workers. This is basically a production line principle of the Henry Ford, who was pioneered the Ford cars in America. Now let's talk about the principle of authority by Henry Fayol. Henry Fayol is a significant European founder of modern management, and he published his book in 1916, and he stressed training on management training focused on planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, and controlling. And Fuel program offered 14 principles to provide a manual for the proper management and for the efficient organization and for the happy employees. The first is specialization of labor, and that means to encourage the continuous improvement in the skills and the development of the improvements, the method of the way of doing the things. Second is authority. So establishing the right to give orders and the power to exact obedience, and then discipline, and there was to be obedience to the authority. Unity of command, each employee was to have one and only one boss. Unity of direction, a single mind should generate a single plan. That means that one person create a one plan uh, for that particular area. Subordination of individual interest to the interest of the organization. Personal interests are subordinate to the interest of the organization. Then remuneration policy, employees should receive their fair payment for their services. Then centralization, consolidation of management functions so that decision will be made from the top. Then the scalar chain concept, a clear line of authority and formal chain of command running from the top to the bottom of the organization as in the military. For example, there is a general and there is a brigadier and the colonel and the major and the captain and the so on. So this kind of a scalar chain. because these earlier concepts were highly inspired by the military organization. So that's why we have seen a lot of similarities in their earlier management model with the military organization. Then the order, all materials and all materials and employees have a prescribed place where they should be found. There is a proper place for the material. There is a proper place for the manager. Equity, there should be principle of fairness involved in the way that the organization treats employees. And the personal tenure, limited turnover of personnel was a good thing, and the lifetime employment should be offered to the good employees. Uh, a very good, the people are very good, they are offered to be the lifetime employment. And initiative, this requires designing a plan and doing what it takes to make it happen. And as per the cause, there should be harmony and cohesion among the organization members. There is an element of harmony and in that organization. Fuel principle mainly concerned with what and how manager did what they did, and fuel was translated into English language in 1940. So his impact on management outside the French and Latin world was delayed. Okay, let's talk about in the next slide, in the next video, I'm going to talk about the Max Weber and the principles of the bureaucracy.